You must have needed to hear it twice. Because we're going to listen to the Holy Ghost, okay? Is that okay? I likely will not get to all of the blanks on your paper, just so you know. If you need to fill those in, please come and see us afterward, and we can help you, because I know sometimes you're that person. Yeah, I am. If I have an empty blank, it's like, oh, what goes there? I need to get that. So just see me afterward, and that'll be fine. Brother Jones asked that we, if possible, if we give an opportunity to ask questions. We might. But if not, that's okay. I'll stay here as long. Next is lunch, so I've got all the rest of the day. I don't need to eat. As you can see, I'll be okay. But if I can help you in any way, that's what we're here for. Okay. So I asked, does anybody know how to do these? They're really great for. Yeah, you know how. Yeah. Can everybody hear me? Will that still pick me up? Maybe? No? Okay. Okay, so I'll try to remember to pick my hand up. Do y'all need some seats? We've got some seats over here. We've got seats on the second row right here. We've got 2 seats over here on this side. We're friendly. It's okay. All right. I haven't done this one yet, but so you know what? Just an idea. So you know when you the thing is we're in children's ministry, and we need to understand how important it is. Whether it's just a Sunday school class, whether it's a service, it is vital. It is important. Because when your kids go to school, when they go to the store, when they're playing with their friends, their lives get messed up. You get all mixed up. Especially in today's world, they're talking with their friends and hearing all kinds of crazy ideas and notions and things that are just incredible. But you know what? If we can get them into your classroom, into your service, Jesus can put them all right. Jesus can straighten them out. This could be your classroom. This could be your service. Whatever it is that you're involved in your church, if you will apply yourself and make yourself, if you will let those kids get into that classroom or into that service that you have prepared, where you have prayed and you have prepared, and you will let them come and let them come in, you know what's going to happen? Jesus is going to make them all straight, all right. Jesus is going to make it good. I know you're thinking there's another one in here, huh? I'll check. No, there's not another one in there. Turn it upside down. Okay. Seriously, if you will let them come and you will make sure that you have prepared and you have gotten yourself ready, Jesus can put their life back together and straight. I just did that for an example. That's not on the papers or anything. I just want to do that as an example. That's not magic. It's practice. I actually solved it with one hand while you weren't watching, as I was sticking it in the bag. So, I mentioned earlier on the top of your page, it says the objective is to learn everything that we can. And I need to change that. I apologize, because we're not going to learn everything that we can in this class. We're not going to. I don't know everything. I can't help you with that. How many in here are Sunday school teachers? Raise your hand, please. Okay. Very good. How many of you are children's ministry workers? You're not in Sunday school. You may do a service or something like that. You're leading a kids service or kids church or something like that. Okay. Youth services, youth team. Not a couple? Okay. So, how about this? Elementary. How many are teaching elementary in your Sunday school class or children's ministry? Elementary ages? Okay. Middle school ages? Okay. As you can see, we're all across the board. There is no way that I can give you details that are going to help each individual, not in 45 minutes. Well, I couldn't. If I had 8 hours, I couldn't give you everything because every class is going to be different. Every age we have to treat different. And not only that, but your church, what I do at my church may not work at your church. The kids that come to my ministry are going to be different than the kids that come into your ministry and that God has put you in charge of. And so everything that I do may not work. And what you do may not work for me. But what I can do, and what we're going to do here today, is I'm going to teach you to fish. I'm going to give you some ideas and parameters that then you take those and say, okay, how can I use that for my particular age group, for my particular setting? You may have a church that has an unlimited budget and they spend $1,000 for every Sunday for you. You know, you can use up to $1,000 for props and backdrop and costumes. And if you are, please see me afterwards so I can put in my application to come at that church. You may have a dedicated Sunday school room that you get to decorate and you get to keep. Or you may be in a gym or a life center or a prayer room where you have to decorate each week and then take it down because there's something else that's going to happen in there. Every kinds of different scenarios and situations. And so I tried to say, okay, how can I help? And so I'm going to give you the overalls, okay? The things that you need to then take, and I need to apply this in the way that I can, whether it's in that classroom that I decorate and I just get to keep, or it's a multi-purpose room, or whatever the situation is, okay? So let's talk about necessary ingredients. When you're talking with kids, the first thing is you need to have action. You are not going to keep your kids' attention by just standing there and talking to them. And, oh my goodness, definitely not by reading to them. Please, you cannot read to kids. Number one, your eyes are not on them. You're not gonna see when Joey hits Jimmy and then they start crying and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, my kids do it too. I didn't say that, just so you know where we come from. I'm so sorry, Brother Cameraman, because you're going to hear a lot of stuff twice. 2.5 years ago, Hurricane Laura came through. We live in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and Hurricane Laura came through, and we lost our house. It was total. I say lost. It was total damage. And so we got a bid to get our roof done, at least get that part so no more water gets inside until we can get the rest of it, you know. And we got a bid. It was like $12,500 to repair the roof, not counting the material, just for the labor. I was like, oh my God. That's probably nothing for you guys, but for an evangelist. I was like, no, we can't. So I went on YouTube and watched some videos, and my daughter sitting over there, Brianna, she's 14 now, she was 12 then, her and I got up there and replaced our roof. And we got done. And when we got done, the mail lady came by. Of course, you know, a roofing contractor probably takes them, 2 days. It took me 2 weeks. So she had been driving by, seeing me working on it all this time. And after it was done, I was outside working on something else, and she says, hey, I just want to tell you, your roof looks good. You did a good job, because she had seen us up there doing it and said, your roof looks good. I was like, well, thank you. That made me feel good, you know. The mail lady noticed it. It was about a month later, the roofing contractor that I had got to give me a bid was doing our neighbor's house. And he came over. I was outside working again. He comes over and he says, you know what? He says, when I saw you up there, I thought, yep, he's going to be calling me to repair and redo what he messed up. He said, but I'm impressed. Your roof looks really good. You did a great job on it. Well, now that meant a lot more coming from him, because he does it. Don't get me wrong, it was nice to hear from the mail lady that, hey, your roof looks good. But it meant a lot more coming from someone who had actually done it. Okay? So so that you will understand what I'm about to tell you. Where does it come from? Why should I listen to this person? I've been teaching Sunday school since I was 12 years old. I came up in a home mission church, got the Holy Ghost when I was 5, baptized when I was 6, and I was put in the 2-year-old Sunday school class, 2 and 3-year-olds at 12 years old. And so I got to learn all the all the fun and good and wonderful things about children's ministry. And so it's been a few years. And then in 1998, we were placed as children's pastors at Eastwood under Brother Merle Ewing, and now under Brother and Sister Lopez. And we're still children's pastors there. We're more of a supervisor because we're gone every weekend, but we still, we have a great team that God has raised up, and they do the, and we've been evangelizing now since 2005. And going and ministering. And God has just allowed us the opportunity to see Him do some amazing things. Touch some kids and just minister to them. Last year at 2 years ago at a youth camp, we saw a young man, 11 years old, come in a wheelchair, had cerebral palsy all of his life, and in that service, God healed him. He walked out, his dad pushing the wheelchair out. That's children's ministry. It wasn't an adult service. It was a children's service. We were at another children's service at a church in North Texas, and there was a young man there. He has a disease. I forget the name of it, but it's basically where when you use your muscles, your body replenishes. His body doesn't. When he uses his muscles, they don't work. He had gotten to a point, he was 11 years old. He couldn't talk anymore. And so he had developed a communication way with his mom and his dad. They bring him to the children's revival. And in the first night while he's there, all of a sudden he's over there praying, and his mom is crying, and I go over and begin to pray with him, and he starts talking in tongues. Can't talk to his parents. He begins speaking in tongues and gets the Holy Ghost. He motions to his dad. After he gets done, he can't talk. He can't talk after that, but he motions to his dad, and he's like, I need to get baptized. And so his dad goes and gets baptized with him because he couldn't. And so we baptized him in Jesus' name in a kids service. I've got news for you. We are not ministering just to the church of tomorrow. We are ministering to the church of today. Yes, they're going to be the future pastors and Sunday school teachers and evangelists. But you know what? Some of them would make great evangelists right now if we would untie their hands and stop and take off the disbelief. If we would equip them and send them out, they make great evangelists because they haven't learned that nobody wants to hear my gospel. They haven't learned all that negative stuff yet. Why not turn our kids into evangelists that are going and reaching the kids that God has put in their circle of influence? If we will understand that we're not just in a classroom just to entertain them and just to babysit them while the real people have church and real church over there and we're just taking up time, if we will understand they are part of the church of today, and if we will equip them, Jesus wants to use them right now. Jesus wants to use them to lay hands on the sick and pray for them, and He can touch them and heal them. What a great testimony that would be. Jesus wants to use our kids if we will let Him. I started talking about this and I didn't get to finish it in another session, but we do I'll get to that. We do a service every 3 months. We try to every 3 months where we go to the synagogue and that's all we do. We go to church like Jesus did, and we have a mikveh, and they get to go by the mikveh and water and wash their hands and their feet and all of that, and then they come in and they sit and we read the scriptures and we talk and I shared with them. I talked about the lame man being healed, and I shared with them how a personal experience, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. You need to share the personal. And I shared the personal experience with them of how when I was 17 years old. My brother was 16. We were outside playing basketball, and the slab that we were playing on didn't go all the way back, and I thought I was, some superstar or something. I go running up and jumped, and of course I missed. But when I came down, my foot came on the edge of that concrete slab and folded over, and it broke my ankle. And I mean, broke. I fell on the ground and picked my leg up, and my foot rotated around backwards. Broke. And my brother gets me on the one side, and the friend that was playing with us, he gets me on the other side, and they carry me inside and put me in the recliner, and he pops the footrest up, and when he did, I was too far down, and my foot hung backwards off of the end of the footrest. He had to twist it back up and help me push back up. It was broke. And I'm sharing this with the kids. You can imagine. But I told them, I said, and we were just like, the one thing that was going through my brain was, oh my goodness, I know Mom and Dad don't have money, and we don't have insurance. They're going to kill me for this. And my brother said, well, we could pray. And I said, yeah, I like that idea. And so my brother, 16 years old, and me, 17 years old, he laid hands on my ankle, and together we prayed. And that other young man just stood there, his eyes this big, watching us, because he wasn't in church or nothing. He was just from the neighborhood near. And we prayed, and I could feel God. I got up. We went outside and continued playing basketball. God healed me. A 16 and a 17-year-old praying, and God healed me. When I related that to those kids in that service, I related that personal experience. The next Sunday, Mom calls me. She's crying in the afternoon. She's crying. It took me a while to get the whole story out. But what happened was, after service on Sunday, her kids were outside playing with the neighbors, and the neighbor kid threw a ball, and it hit her son right square in the face, and it broke his nose. He had blood gushing out. His eyes turned black. Immediate. It was immediate. She heard her kids yelling and screaming. Oh my goodness! She runs outside. She sees her son, good blood gushing, eyes all black and everything. And she's like, oh my goodness. And so she tells him, get in the car. We'll get to the hospital. Everybody, she said she's fixing to go back in and get the keys. And her two daughters, 8 and 9 years old, that were in that Wednesday night service where I shared that experience, they said, hey, wait a minute, Pastor Kevin said that we can pray and Jesus will heal him. Can we pray? And she said, I was just like, okay, just to placate them, okay, yeah, go ahead while I do this. And those two girls, 8 and 9 years old, laid hands on that young man. Immediately, the blood stopped, the swelling went away, the color returned to normal by an 8 and a 9-year-old. You hear me? Jesus wants to use our kids right now. We don't have to wait until they're 18, 19, ready to go to Bible college. Jesus wants to use them now. If we will get the picture and understand, we are helping them, we are preparing them for Jesus to use them. And the thing is that if we have that understanding, it's going to help us so that we're not trying to get ready for our Bible story on Sunday morning when we're on our way to the church. Because if we understand that we are there to minister to them, to help them, because they're going to need Jesus this week, I'm not going to say, well, they'll get the story of Jonah again, because I know the literature's going to come back around to that. It's not about them getting that story. It's about Jesus putting in them what they're going to need for this week. And Jesus has purposely chosen each one of you to be the one to do that. He trusts you. He knows you have what it takes, or you wouldn't be in that classroom or in that position. So let's talk about, I don't know where I was, but we're going to talk about the necessary ingredients. Did I actually say that already? Action. We've got to have action. You cannot stand and just read to your kids. You've got to have action. Remember what they're dealing with, what we're competing against. I think it was Sister Vernon that talked about it. Parents giving their kids this to babysit them. They don't look at that screen and it's just words that they're reading. There's action going on there. They're playing a game. It's a car running or they're running down the slope or whatever. There's action on there. You're not going to keep their attention just standing there. You've got to have some action. Well, I'm teaching the Sunday school class. Yes, you can have some action with your Sunday school lesson. Move around. Demonstrate a little bit of it for them. You talk about entertain a kid. Absolutely. Start demonstrating how, Jacob went to sleep on the rock. Lay down on the floor. Put your head. Talk about how hard it is. Oh my goodness, this hurts. Oh, here's a better idea. All of you lay down and put your head on the floor. Feel how wonderful that. You can bring the Bible to life with some action. Make sure that you've got action. And you can't read. Did I say that? You can't read. Please do not read. You're not gonna keep their attention if you're reading. The next thing is we have to have balance. We have to have balance. And what I mean by that is when you're teaching, you have to know where the lines are for your kids. If you're teaching the 4 and 5-year-old class and you're talking about Noah, you're not going to, when you start talking about Noah's building an ark and it's this many cubits high and this many cubits wide, and we don't really know how tall that was because the cubit was different. Sometimes because the cubit was measured from the elbow to the tip of the finger, and sometimes it was 20.9 inches and sometimes it was 15 inches. So your 4 and 5-year-olds, you lost them. That's too much detail. Now, if you're teaching the 16, 17-year-old class, they may enjoy some of that detail. You've got to find the balance. Give them enough of the details that they need, but don't give them any extra of the stuff that they don't need. Make sure that you keep it direct. Make sure that you find that balance for your kids. Again, it's going to be different depending on the age group, depending on the attention span. We've been to churches that were in a metropolitan area, and we've been to churches that were in a rural area. And I can tell you, the kids are different. So just because you can do it one way at your church and you're in a metropolitan area, it's not going to work the same. They have different attention spans. They have different realities that you're having to deal with. That's why God appointed you in your church, in your neighborhood, because you understand. And He can use you for that. And so we've got to find that balance. Okay? Next thing is we've got to have connection. Okay. You've got to have connection. You've got to engage the kids and keep them connected with you, or you cannot put anything into them. You've got to be connected. If you don't have their attention, you're not going to help them in any way. You've got to get their attention. When I'm ministering to kids, I don't look like this because I've got to keep their attention. So I'm ministering to adults, so that's why I dress this way. When I'm ministering to kids, I've got, I have it here. Yeah. We were preaching the Kentucky kids camp here back a few years, and they said, you're required to have a tie to be on the platform. No problem. I had a tie. You have to make sure that you connect with your kids. And you dress a funny way. At our church, it's a rule. They have to have 3 things: a hat, a tie, or a scarf, or mismatched socks, or mismatched tennis shoes. Something. They got to have something because we've got to connect with our kids. But beyond that, you've got to keep their attention. Now, I'm sure that most of us have heard the calculation that their attention span is 1 minute for every year they are old. So if you're teaching 7-year-old class, then you've got about 7 minutes to keep their attention. I don't think that that's true anymore. In our world of technology, it's a lot shorter. From my experience, it's much shorter. From my wife's experience, it's way, way shorter because she has to talk to me. And my attention span is very short. So you say, well, what am I going to do? Because I'm teaching the 4 to 5 year olds. So you're telling me that if it's 4 minutes, so it's less than that. So I've got 2.5 minutes that I've got their attention. And then I can't tell the story of Jonah and getting on the boat and going the wrong way and getting in a whale and going in there. I can't tell them all of that in 2.5 minutes. Well, you might be able to, but they're not going to hear it. I mean, it's going to be so fast, and they're not going to get any of that information. How can I keep their connection? How can I keep that connection? Well, that's where you get them involved and you reconnect. So here's what you can do when you're teaching them. and this is going to take some practice. Believe me. So let's say you're teaching about Daniel in the lion's den, and so you're teaching and you're talking, and I'm gonna use that for example because this is the first one that I tried this on, and I had to practice, and I had me a little clock, and I had it set for 2 minutes. I was teaching the 4 to 5 year olds the story of Daniel in the lion's den. I had my little clock, and I'm watching it, and you know, a timer, and it's counting down, and I'm telling the story. I'm not talking in front of the kids. I'm practicing this in the week before, gonna teach it. Okay? Because they deserve that kind of an investment of our time. They deserve that kind of love and investment in them. And so I was practicing ahead of time, and I watch it, and I start telling the story to myself. And Daniel and the king, and he had these traders and yada yada, you know, and I go through the story, and then that countdown's getting down, and hits about 2 minutes just as Daniel is getting in the lines. I'm telling the story, and just as Daniel is walking into that den, and he's looking around, and he's like, and my timer hits the end of 2 minutes. So I'm like, okay, what can I do right here? I was like, okay. And so then I said, and so then it's like, all the kids, I'll have them all roar. Ah! Well, that got them engaged. That got them connected. Guess what? Now my 2 minutes starts over. And so then I keep going with the story and telling them. And then when the timer gets down to 2 minutes, okay, what can I do right here? What action can I get them to do? And so then that next Sunday, I'm telling the story. And so Daniel, he's in the den, and he's looking around, and because I don't have the clock now, you know, so I'm having, and he walks in the den. And he's looking around, and all of a sudden, there was a roaring lion. Let me hear your roar. And the kids all roared. And then I went on with the story. And Daniel was like, oh my goodness. Oh. The thing is that's the way that you keep connected with them. Engage them. Make them a part of it. Here's the thing. They're going to remember it better. They're going to, when they get that connection, it's going to stay with them. Okay? Now, yeah. Okay, let me skip down. It's all relevant. It's all relevant. We need to relate to today. We need to relate to today. When you talk about the 3 Hebrew children, they got thrown in the fire because they wouldn't bow to a king that wanted them to. Your kids are not going to have to face a king that's telling them, you better bow down or I'm going to throw you in a fiery furnace. That's not a reality that's going to happen for them. So if I just tell them the story, that does not help them. I need to relate that to their life. I need to help them to understand. You know what? You're going to face a bully in your life, and that bully's going to try to get you to do things that we know Jesus doesn't like. Make sure that you relate it to today. Make sure that you show them how this applies to them today. You need to relate the principle. The next one. You need to relate the principle. Brother Ewan used to tell us, this was way back years ago, and with the ministers, and he would say, look guys, he says, we can't make enough rules. Talking about, you know, the way we're supposed to live and what we're supposed to do. He said, you can't make enough rules because life changes. Technology changes. You know what? You can't make a rule or you can't watch a TV. You need to teach the principle, I will put no evil thing before my eyes. Because now I've got a device that could have a lot worse on it than what was ever on that box. But if I'm only living by a rule where you can't have that, okay, I don't have that. Oh, wow. You understand? So we have to teach the principle. We have to make sure that we're getting across to our kids the principle of how they're supposed to live their lives, how they're supposed to. Don't just tell them the story. Relate the principle to them. How does this apply to your situation? How can you use this? A great way that you can do that in your services, even in your kids' services. If you're in a Sunday school class, you can do this with your Bible story, and that is relate it to them with another story. Jesus did it. He taught in parables, and He gave them situations that they could identify with, that they would realize and recognize. And so we've got to make sure that we relate the principle to them. The next thing is we need to relate examples. Give them personal examples that you can show them and tell them of how that Jesus does it still today. How does Jesus still help us today? Give them personal examples. Make sure that, here's the thing, when I was teaching the 5th and 6th grade class, we had a questionnaire that we would give them when they were fixing to promote out. When they were fixing to go to the next class, I gave them a questionnaire. What was the thing you liked the best about the class? What was the thing you didn't like about the class? Who was your favorite teacher? Yeah, I did. I want to know. I want to know if I'm not doing a good job so that I can get better. And we made it anonymous so that they could. And of course, we got all kinds of, answers, from some of the kids, oh, I love the stories of Jesus. I love, because a lot of times kids will give you an answer they think you're looking for, and so you have to kind of weed some of that out. But the number one thing that we got from our kids over years, the number one thing that they loved was that we always told them a personal story. We told them the Bible story, but then we told of a personal experience that happened with us. And they loved that. They loved that personal experience because it related to them. It made Jesus a now God, not just a God of the Old Testament or the New Testament. It made Him a God that, He might be able to help me with my problems. You tell the story of Elijah comes to the widow's house, and he says, "Hey, make me a cake." And the widow's like, "Oh, but I only have enough for one more, and my son, we were fixing to eat it, and then we're gonna die." And he says, "No, make it for me first." And so it's like, well, can you imagine her son? He smells it cooking in the oven. He's like, "Oh, yeah, Mom's, I don't know about y'all, but when she makes bread, I gain weight just walking in the house. It smells so good, that aroma of baked bread. Oh, it's so good, and it smells so good. I mean, she and when she does it, that sourdough bread, oh my goodness, and I can almost taste it sometimes. The butter, I can imagine the butter melting on it. I mean, oh, that's really good. And that young man, he had Mama's cooking before, and he's like, "Oh, this is going to be good." And so he goes in, and he knows it's about time, and he goes and he's sitting at the table, and here comes Mom, but Mom walks right past and walks right out to the porch and goes and brings it to the preacher and didn't give it to him. And he's like, "Oh, what's going on? Oh my goodness." And of course, she had to bring it to the preacher out on the front porch because he, single mom, he's not going to be in the house. And so she brings it out to him and feeds him, and then she comes back and he says, "Okay, go make you something." And she walks back in, and the son's like, "I thought we were going to eat. You just gave it." And she said, "I know, but the preacher, and he told me that I got to go cook something else." And so she went back in, and oh my goodness, there's more flour, there's more oil. Oh, and so she made that, and then she's able to bring that to that young man, and that young man is like, "Oh yeah, I finally get to eat. This is really good." You know what? Jesus did that. Wasn't that awesome? Jesus did that way long time ago. But you know what? Not near as long ago. I was 7 years old, and we were living in Austin, Texas. And my dad tight budget and everything, and it was on a Thursday night. And my mom was in the kitchen, and I'd already heard the conversation between her and Dad. We were having goulash that night, where you throw everything in, whatever's left, all the leftovers, because there was no other groceries. And she says, John, I don't have anything in it. And he said, well, I don't get paid till tomorrow evening. We won't be able to go shopping till. And so my dad said, you know what, we'll eat tonight, and then tomorrow will be a fast day. I'm 7 years old. I know what that means. Oh, Lord. And so my mom says, fix the table. I go and I put the plates and everything at the table. And just about that, my mom is starting to put the goulash into the bowl, and it wasn't a bunch. I mean, myself, 7-year-old, 6-year-old brother, and my mom and dad. And it wasn't much. I mean, just a little. And but I mean, it's going to be enough. And about that time, there's a knock on the front door. 3 college students from church are there. You know what they're there for. And they come in, and my dad said, well, we don't have anything else to drink but water. Would y'all like some water? Oh, yeah. And so he goes in the kitchen and tells me, and I get some water, and my mom's putting it back in the pan to keep it warm. And I bring the water in there, and we wait. And we wait, and I'm in the kitchen with Mom because I'm getting hungry. And we're waiting, and they're not leaving. They're just, And so finally, I'm in the kitchen with Mom, and finally my dad says, well, and my mom says, don't you do it, John Merriman. Don't you do it. We were about to eat. Would y'all like to join us? I know it. I'm like, oh, man. Because at our house, the rule was guests get to serve themselves first, then the kids, then Mom and Dad. I'm like, oh, my goodness, I'm not going to get very much to eat, if anything. My mom says, she's slamming stuff around. She says, go put more places. So I go, and I set the table. And it didn't matter if it was just goulash. We had the plate and the fork and the knife and the spoon and, everything you're not going to use. Just so you could imagine what it would be like to use it. And and I set the other 3 places. And I go back in and I tell Mom, I said, Mom, I've got it set, and she has the food in the bowl. And she says, go sit at the table. And I go and I sit at the table. And I tell you, when she left the kitchen, and when she walked in and set it on the table, it had filled, the bowl was full to the top, and some fell out onto the tabletop. I saw that. And not only that, those 3 college students, they all served themselves, and there was still food left. And they served us. They served my mom and dad served. They got seconds. My dad got seconds. My dad had some for lunch the next day. Jesus multiplied right there in a kitchen in Austin, Texas. That was today. That wasn't in the Bible. That was today. Jesus did that. I saw that. Now, when you relate a personal experience, I wasn't doing it for a show. I've told that story hundreds of times, but it still impacts me because of how real it was to me. I experienced that. But did you notice I tell that story a little different than I tell the story in the Bible? Because it impacted me personally. It touched. There's more that's ministered there. You need to share your personal experience with your kids, because that is going to make Jesus real to them. That is going to help them to have trust and faith and know that Jesus is going to help them with their situation, with what they're facing this week. Relate the reality. Give them some examples. Oh, give them examples. That's where I was. Now, relate the reality. When you're telling that Bible story, when you're teaching that Bible lesson, make sure and make it real for them. Don't just talk about Zechariah was in the temple and he was chosen that day to burn the incense and the angel shows up and tells him, hey, Elizabeth's going to have a baby. You need to make it more real for them. you're going to have to invest some time and study, because that's about how much the Bible gives us. But go and do some research, get some study. You know what I found out? There was like 800 Levites. They were up for that job. They had a rotation deal, and they would cast lots to decide who got to go and do a certain task or a certain role. And so Zechariah, it was a God-appointed thing that he was in the temple that day lighting the incense. And he had to do it before church started. And so it's like 5:30 in the morning, because the first service, they're fixing to come in at 6 o'clock. He's in there all by himself lighting the incense. And so when I tell the story, it's like, and so Zechariah, here he is, and he won. He gets to be the one to light the incense. And he's like, oh, I've been waiting for this. Man, wait till Joey finds out I got picked. I'm going to be like, nah, 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 nah. I get to light the incense. Joey, Joey's going to be so mad. This is going to be good. And so Zechariah's got, that's real. That's people. Sometimes we think of the people of the Bible as all saints and angels, and they're real people. I'm sure Zechariah had that kind of an attitude sometimes with some of his relatives. I do. Oh, y'all are holy and don't, but I do. And so Zechariah is like, and so he's going in the temple, and everybody else has to wait outside. He's going in. He's by himself. He's in there first, and he comes in. Oh, it's dark. There's only one the candlestick that's only got them 7 little flames in there. So it's kind of dark. So he's kind of coming in. And he's like, oh, this is really cool. And he walks over and makes sure the showbread is ready. And he's there to light the incense. And he's lighting the incense. And an angel touches him on the shoulder. I thought I was in here by myself. Oh, my goodness. You scared me to death. If I'm teaching the 5 to 6 year olds, Zechariah's like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom now. Oh, that scared me so bad. Make it real to them. Bring out reality of life to them. That way they understand, and it creates a picture in their mind that they will see and they will understand, and it will help to bring it home for them. They need that picture. You know what? They're not going to forget that one. They're going to remember. And it's going to be, especially next time they get scared. Oh, yeah, you know what? I remember Zechariah got scared too. Oh, man. Was that an angel? No, that's just Mom. Okay. Relate the reality to them. Make it something because when we do that, it's going to make it more memorable for them, but it also is going to help them to understand that the people of the Bible were just people, just like us. They faced the same problems. They faced the same struggles. We talk about Abraham being the father of faith, and oh, he was so amazing. And sometimes we build him way up. Man, he had so much faith. Woo, he was awesome. He had so much faith, he lied all the time. Read it. Telling the king, oh, that's my sister. Well, where's your faith now, big boy? Don't you believe that Jesus can? People, they're real people in the Bible. We need to help them to understand that, because sometimes I think that it has actually derailed some of our young people and young adults, as even though they've grown up in the church, they've heard the stories of the Bible, but they see them as some exalted, amazing, extra talented person, and I could never live up to that measure. And so when I'm faced with problems, well, I'm not like David. I'm not like these heroes of the Bible. I'm just a little old me. But if I've made that person real to them and helped them to understand they faced the same problems, they had struggles just like you, then I can help them to be stronger and believe that God is going to help me. One thing that we need to do is, and I've kind of touched on this a couple of times already, but to make the stories from then understood now. And a way to do that is follow Jesus' example. Do it with parables. Tell it in parables. write dramas. We do it with dramas. We write dramas, and we'll go into series and stuff like this. And I'm sorry, because I know I've already talked about this today, and some of you may have heard it. But we had one series where we were teaching on holiness standards. Yeah, to 4 to 11-year-olds. Yeah. How are you going to do that? You can't read Corinthians and get across that, men, you're supposed to have your hair cut, and ladies, you're not supposed to. Not to them, you can't do that. And so we had this series that we were doing, and we do our series in 8 weeks, and we had this, and we had this young girl, and she was wearing a wig. Let me say that up front, okay? She was wearing a wig. But she was being tempted to cut her hair. And in this series, we had already learned there were these demons and angels that were there. Angels that were there to protect and try to encourage and try to give. And there were devils that were there that she couldn't see them, see them. She'd have to look through them. Great actors and actors. But as the story's unfolding, and she's there, and she comes in, and she's sitting on the bed, and she's like, oh, my friend just got her hair cut, and it looks so cool, and maybe I should do that. And the angels are there, and they're like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. You're not, Jesus wouldn't like that. And they're whispering to her, Jesus wouldn't like that. And all the kids are sitting there, they're seeing this. And then the devils are there further away, because the angels are right there. She's got the Holy Ghost. She's baptized in Jesus' name. The angels are right there by the bed. The devils are over by the wall, but they're telling her, and cut your hair. You'll be like your friend and all of this. And she ends up, and she reaches, and she picks up the scissors, and she just trims just a little bit on the bangs. As soon as she did, the angels had to step out of the way, and the devils pounced on her. And the image, the picture, the reality of what that was impacted our kids. There is a way to present the Bible and the message in a way that they will understand and they can't escape it. It was later, a few days later, Brother Ewan calls me up into the office. Oh, Jesus, I'm sorry. Whatever it was, I put it under the blood. Calls me in the office, Bubba. I want you to know I'm proud of you. I didn't hear nothing for the next little bit, the relief. I had a mom come to me. You're doing a good job back there. She came to me and was complaining because she brought her daughters to get their hair trimmed. And they were crying and screaming, Mama, you're going to let the devils get me. We have to reach this generation. And Jesus has tasked you. I mentioned a little bit about this. I mentioned a little bit about this last night. And, oh man. Did we fill in all the blanks at least? I've got some more here, but let me just say this. I mentioned this a little bit last night. And that is that we live in probably the darkest hour of the church as far as our kids. They are under assault. The enemy is trying to kill them. And if he can't get them dead, then he's trying to change them and confuse them. You don't know if you're a boy or a girl. You don't know this. You don't know that. And all of it. And he's attacking our kids. This is a dark hour for our kids. But Jesus has saved the best for this hour. I can see Jesus sitting there and looking around and sees John sitting over there, right there beside him, and the one that went all the way to the cross with him, the one that ends up giving us the whole last book of the Bible, that John, and he sees him sitting here, and he's got Peter over here that he already gave the keys to the kingdom of heaven. He didn't put Peter in today. He didn't put John in today. He put you. He chose you, and he doesn't make a mistake. Again, that goes back to us saying, oh, well, they were such heroes. They were just people. But Jesus chose each one of you and purposefully handpicked you for the kids that He is asking you to reach, to minister to. It's not a mistake. It's not an accident. And He has already equipped you with everything you need. All you have to do is say, Jesus, here I am. I'll use whatever gifts, whatever talents, whatever abilities. Just show me. I'll do it. I'll do the best I can. And give your best to Him. And if you will do that, He will multiply it. He will increase it. And pretty soon, you're going to see some amazing things happening in the lives of your kids. If you will invest yourself. I've given us some ideas and overreaching things, but if there's one thing that I can tell you that will affect more than anything else, and that is praying for your kids every day, praying for the kids that you're ministering to, preparing ahead of time. Don't wait till Sunday. Prepare all week. Get ready for your class or your service. And open up your heart and your spirit. Jesus, what would you have me to minister to this part of the church that you've assigned me to minister to? The saying years ago, what would Jesus do? Well, that's nice. But Jesus didn't sit in a Sunday school classroom with glue and paper and scissors and keep the scissors out of Johnny's hands. We saw what he did. Sarah's mom. I'm having to buy a new dress because Johnny got them scissors over there. Jesus didn't sit in that classroom. He didn't have to go through that. He didn't have to deal with the people that we deal with. But Jesus gave you a good example, the perfect example. What would your pastor do? What would your pastor do? If you can imagine your pastor while he's on his way driving to church on Sunday morning, pulls his Bible out. Well, what verse am I going to preach from today? Let me see here. Yeah, that looks good. I think I'll go in and preach. If you can imagine your pastor doing that, then it's okay for you to study on the way to church for your Sunday school class. I know. But our kids deserve our love and our time and our investment in preparation, in prayer, and practice. I hope that something I have said has helped you today. And I'm sorry we didn't get to questions time, but I'm available if you have any questions. I'll be happy to help you with anything. Did I talk about that? The backdrop for decorating your room. Oh my, I got to stop. So if I can help you with anything else, Lord bless you. Thank you so much for being here. Enjoy lunch.